Despite the warmth of that welcome, life is not easy for adolescent girls. In recent years, there's been a growing realization that girls suffer a particular disadvantage when they reach puberty, especially those in poor families. Studies show that some girls struggle to manage their menstruation, and this can be a significant barrier to girls accessing education. One study found that Ugandan girls missed between 1 and 3 days of school every month in term time due to their periods. Another found they missed up to 20% of the school year. Obviously, this has a huge impact on girls' education and their future prospects as adults. We already know that school dropout among girls is often much higher than boys, especially in upper primary and lower secondary. In Uganda, for example, only about 2/3 of girls complete primary school. Girls who drop out early are at high risk of teenage pregnancy or child marriage, and obviously a future of poverty. This situation is not just confined to Uganda. It is common across many countries, not just in Africa, but in other parts of the world too. In contrast, educating girls has huge benefits. Educated girls are less likely to marry early or become teenage mothers. They're less likely to die in childbirth, and they earn more as adults. Particularly shocking to me is that the children of mothers with secondary education are nearly 5 times more likely to survive their first 5 years of life than children born to women with little or no education, according to UNICEF. In the last few years, Faith in Water has been working with Christian and Muslim groups in Uganda, and our experience is that when faith groups take this up as an education issue, and also one of dignity and well-being, they can do a great deal to help girls stay in school. Our Dignity for Girls programme worked with the Church of Uganda, the Catholic Church and the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council, and this was the first time that any of these groups had been engaged on menstrual health, even though they run around half of Uganda's schools. So what are the main problems facing girls when it comes to managing their periods? Broadly speaking, the challenges fall into 3 categories: information, facilities, by which we mean both sanitary materials such as pads and cloths, and also school latrines and washing facilities, and attitudes. There's generally a lack of information on menstruation and puberty. Girls say they're not taught it properly. Teachers tell us they haven't received sufficient training in this subject, and they're also embarrassed to teach it. Girls often can't access sanitary products such as pads or cloths, usually due to poverty, or because fathers, who often hold the family purse strings, don't understand why their daughters need these products and need them every month. School latrines and washing facilities are often very poor, which means girls choose to stay away from school during their period rather than have to use a latrine that is perhaps very dirty or doesn't have a door or water for washing. Girls are very afraid of being teased by boys, and that is largely due to the huge stigma associated with menstruation. Girls suffer a great deal of shame and embarrassment, and this has a really corrosive effect on their sense of well-being. So what can we do? It's very important to teach girls and boys the biological facts of puberty and menstruation. Children need to understand what is happening to their bodies. This obviously can be taught in a way that is age-appropriate and culturally sensitive, but we must teach that menstruation is natural, normal, and nothing to be ashamed of. It is a natural biological process for women and girls. It is not a disease or illness. It is a sign of good health and of growing up. What else should we do? We must improve our latrines and washing facilities. Girls need latrines that are safe, private and clean, with doors that shut and preferably lock from the inside. They also need water and soap for washing, and ideally a separate changing room. This private space, preferably with water for washing, is very valuable to girls. And we must break the silence on menstruation in order to tackle the sense of stigma and shame. That means involving faith leaders, faith-based women's groups and youth groups, and fathers and boys. Now, having said that, beginning a conversation on menstruation for the first time is not easy. especially when you're talking to strangers and perhaps male priests or imams. These are traditionally private matters and in most parts of the world something you just don't talk about in public. So how did we do it? Faith and Water adopted a two-tier approach. First, we worked with faith leaders at a head office level, especially those in charge of education, but also leaders of women's groups and youth groups, to bring about a change in attitudes and education policy. Then we worked at a local level to establish a number of schools as centres of excellence in teaching on menstruation. This involved training the girls and the teachers, and although we didn't train the boys at first, we do now, it was amazing how well the information spread to them in the school and how their knowledge of puberty and menstruation also improved. We also trained the parents and the local faith leaders because we wanted the messages that the girls were hearing in school to be heard in the community and, very important, in the local church or mosque. We provided the girls with reusable sanitary pads as well as knickers and soap to help them manage their periods. And we set up girls' clubs with specially adapted games such as snakes and ladders with information about menstruation so they could learn about periods in a fun and informal way. We trained the pupils in making reusable sanitary pads, and this was a really popular activity, including among the boys. We improved school latrines. We didn't have the budget to build new ones, but we repaired them. We built hand washing stations and girls' changing rooms, and we installed brick rainwater harvesting tanks in half of our schools. This holistic approach was very successful. At the start of the project, we held 3 menstrual health workshops for our 3 faith groups. And even though virtually everyone there had never discussed menstruation in public before, or even, as some admitted, thought about it before, they all agreed this was an important issue that they had to address in their schools. It obviously can be difficult to raise these issues, especially, as I mentioned, with male priests and imams, but we used a few techniques to get people talking, like the open private secret game you can see this Catholic priest and others playing here. We used it in all our training sessions and it really helped to break the ice, and we're certainly happy to share these techniques with you. What's interesting is that once people start talking about this subject, they often lose their embarrassment quite quickly and become ambassadors for menstrual health and hygiene. And once the faith leaders begin talking about it, especially male faith leaders, it has a huge impact on the community. We had the chief imam of Uganda talking about this subject in the national mosque with his words broadcast on Muslim radio and TV. That was enormously significant. We had bishops taking sanitary pads to their congregations and asking, "Do you know what this is? Do you know that you're supposed to provide these for your daughters?" All 3 of our faith groups developed menstrual health policies for their schools, which will have long-lasting impacts for hundreds of thousands of girls in Uganda. The Muslim community has even launched its own annual day, Dignity Day, where they raise awareness on menstrual health and hygiene every year. And because the faith embraced this subject, we reached 31,844 people with either awareness raising or training on menstrual health, and that was 4 times more than our original target. And hundreds of thousands of people heard a discussion about menstruation on either Catholic or Muslim radio or TV. When we evaluated how attitudes had changed at the end of the project, we were delighted. 99% of women and 88% of men said their attitude towards menstruation had improved. The vast majority of girls expressed confidence about managing their periods, and best of all, only 12.24% of girls said they still regularly missed school because of their period, compared to 48.49% of girls at the start of the project. Including menstrual health and hygiene in your education policies and teaching is a really important way that faiths can serve their girl pupils. It helps girls stay in school by removing one of the barriers that adolescent girls face, and it also really improves their quality of life. Thank you for listening.